Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Life as a Chad YouTube channel. I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. It is, of course, Christmas Day, and I wanted to wish you guys all a very, very Merry Christmas. Now, of course, if you are Orthodox, I don't think Christmas is actually today. And of course, Orthodox are big into the red pill regarding Saint Nick and who he was, and all of that good stuff. But nonetheless, I realized that not everybody is Orthodox, and I did just kind of want to get into the spirit of things. It was too little too late to get a full-blown ugly sweater or something like that. I did have the option to go get the Santa hat, but I chose against that. Instead, I just put this beautiful fake tree behind me that's all decorated. You guys actually can't see, but it also has this bad boy on it, a little nativity scene within the snow globe, which I think is awesome. And then it has this nativity scene as well. So I just wanted to give those two items a little shout out. It's hard to get everything in view. When you're decorating, what people don't realize when you're recording a podcast and or creating a YouTube channel and you're trying to have your background taken care of, really there's only a certain amount that will fit within. And so it is more difficult than you would think getting everything into it. That's why a lot of people end up, you see basically two options. Either they do a full view of their room, there's really no in between, or they do a really small space like they're in a closet, basically, and that's how they go. So, but I did just want to do a Christmas episode. Number one, first and foremost, I want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas. I hope you guys, got everything you wish for. You guys have been good boys and girls, as the story goes. But ultimately, Christmas and this time is all about spending time with those that you love, that you cherish, that you care about. Because at the end of the day, really, when you take into account your life, the only people that you can really count on outside of yourself are family and, for the most part, friends, but definitely family. And I remember a while ago, I saw this video about this guy, and he was discussing this realization that he had when it came to seeing his family. This guy lived out of town. I think it may have even been on the Joe Rogan podcast. I can't remember exactly where it's from, but he realized that he was only going to he lived out of town, and during one of his trips, when he was on his way back, he came to the realization that because he lived out of town and at the current rate, if he looked at his previous history of how often he would go and visit his family, there was only going to be, he came to the realization that there was only going to be X amount of times left that he was going to see his mom and dad. And, it's a very sad story, obviously, or sad reminder, rather, but I would always rather know those uncomfortable truths so that I can respond accordingly than not know and not have any opportunity to make the changes that I need to make. I'm very lucky that I live next to my family and get to see them very often. But I fully realize that in the future, that may not be the case for a variety of reasons, whether it be me moving or them moving. So, what I'm getting at is you need to cherish these times and these moments, log them in, and just do your best to have them be as fulfilling a time as possible and as authentic as possible. I did also want to touch upon Saint Nick, give Saint Nick a little shout out here. Maybe I can share my screen here. This is Saint Nicholas here. Got some pictures of him. I believe he was born in Turk Turkey. Um, Very interesting. Let's take a look at what Wikipedia says about him. Saint Nicholas of Myra, also known as Nicholas of Bari, was an early Christian bishop of Greek descent from the maritime city of Myra in Asia Minor, modern day Demre, Turkey, during the time of the Roman Empire. Because of the many miracles attributed to his intercession, he is also known as Nicholas the Wonder Worker. Saint Nicholas is the patron saint of sailors, merchants, archers, repentant thieves, children, brewers, pawnbrokers, unmarried people. I don't know if this is the same Saint Nick, though, guys. Is it? It's got to be. It's got to be. So, anyways, that I mean, when I type in Saint Nick, this is who comes up. Saint Nicholas. I would highly recommend you guys checking it out. This is an Orthodox idol here. Which is pretty cool. Do I have that? No. Kind of like the one I have back here. Not the same person, but of course, this is very important to Orthodox. So, use this time to further your knowledge, spend time with family and friends if possible. Of course, I'm spending a little bit of time with you guys because I love and care about you all. There is one video that I wanted to react to that I've been wanting to react to. My guy, Andrew Wilson, who I was lucky enough to interview, very good guy. And he was on the Whatever podcast. I would love to go on the Whatever podcast in the future myself once the channel gets a little bit bigger. And they were talking about traditionalism and which you always get with these women that go, not always, not all, but frequently, what you get with these women who go on these podcasts is inevitably when it comes down to it, they want a man to be traditional. They want a provider. They want a protector. They want all of these masculine qualities. And it's funny because, some of these women who are pressed on this will say that, and then in the same breath but a different conversation, when they're trying to define what masculinity is, they'll come up with some bullshit about how masculinity is different in this culture and this culture, and it's not always the same across the board, and in different periods of time it was different, and how do we know what exactly masculine, just enough to make your head spin. But I thought that this was a fascinating insight into kind of just a fascinating discussion. One side note that before we play this video, I think that these podcasts should have a cap on the amount of times these women can come on these shows on like a per year basis. I think the cap should be 3 appearances in a year-long span, because at this point, and this has been well documented on my channel, that the same women are being passed around all these red pill channels. And if you think that they are not benefiting from being on these channels, you're sadly mistaken. Yes, do they get exposed? And yes, do they provide guys like me with content? And do they provide laughs and some ha-has to people that are watching? Of course, of course, of course, of course. But believe you me, they are absolutely benefiting. It is all worth it from the whatever, most of the time, their OnlyFans girls and things like that, believe me, they are benefiting financially from this appearance. So no matter how heated or uncomfortable it is at times to have their worldview critiqued and argued against, in the end, it is worth it for them financially. And, you know, they don't give a shit. They don't care if they are exposed logically and their worldview is completely inconsistent. They could care less. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned from this. You know, I used to be a guy who would argue my worldview or things that I believe to be true just as much with women as I would with men. And that is probably the biggest thing that I've learned from this podcast is when it comes to women, you can't do it. It's not worth it because just by the nature of how God created women and, you know, their strengths and their weaknesses, one of the things, the qualities that they have is this very emotionally driven filtering of information, and then, you know, what they end up saying and advocating for such and such and such. So, but you cannot, like, you can't, ultimately, you can't get upset with you know, with something being the essence of what they are. You know, you can't get upset with a woman being a woman. And, you know, kind of going back to what I was saying previously, how these women don't give a shit about their worldview being critiqued and laid bare and analyzed and argued against. That is exactly why you should not argue uh, or give any like further push on what you think is right or wrong with any woman that's not your wife, your girl, hell, even your girlfriend, or a family member, because it's just not worth it. Because in the end, they could care less. They don't think the same way we do. Now, is that always the case? No. You know, sometimes there are women who come on these shows and end up, you know, saying that they were red pilled and they thank them for opening their eyes and their mind to the truth and things like that. But I would say far more often than not, that is not the case. So anyways, we're going to check out this clip. I think that they should have a cap on how often these two chicks right here, Keiko or Keiko, whatever the fuck, and this blonde uh demon woman who has been on this podcast multiple times. Now, granted, has she given great content to the whatever podcast? Sure. And I guess in a sense it's worth it. But it's like, you know, I see all these people in the comment section commenting and saying, you know, getting upset and perturbed about some of the things that she says. And it's like, guys, number one, she's a woman. You should not, I mean, you're getting mad at a woman being a woman. But secondly, you know, we've already seen it before. We've seen it multiple times before with some of the other episodes that she's been on, how she thinks about things. So, but make no mistake, she is a pretty vile human being inwardly. And that is probably the second biggest thing that I have learned from watching these shows is some of these girls are some of the most vile, just not great human beings on the inside. And I mean, it makes sense because at the end of the day, they have not been forced like men have to recalibrate and learn lessons along the road, because these women, especially when they are still young and still fairly beautiful, they are told every single thing that they want to hear. Very rarely are they actually challenged. So it's not really a shocker that they think what they think. So, all right, guys, let's check out this clip and I will respond to it. This is a Christmas Day episode from your boy. Just want to make sure that the sound is on. Good. All right, let's check it out.
I want to be making lunch in the cafeteria for my kids. I want to be taking them on their field trips. Yeah, that's not, it doesn't just stop once your kid reaches kindergarten.
But you outsource.
So where we're coming in with this now, eventually where this episode is going to go for the whatever podcast is them being asked and discussing why it's not inconsistent that they advocate for women's rights and female empowerment while also simultaneously expecting a traditional man. That's where it's going to get, and that's the main thing I want to respond to. But currently they're arguing about the fact, or not the fact, that as kids get older, the less and less amount of interaction, responsibility, difficulty they are. In other words, as a kid gets older, the less and less you have to intervene and parent, because they're getting older, they're getting more mature, they're learning, they're getting wiser, and that's what they're currently arguing about.
Most of it by sending them off to a public school.
Example,
hang on, let me finish. For most of the day, you send the child off to a public school.
So, okay,
what work are you really putting in?
As an example, right, Andrew? So I want to have at least like 3 kids, right, about 4 years apart. So I might have 1 kid in full school, but I'm still gonna have 1 kid that needs to be home, right? You might have a kid that's sick one day. You might have a kid that you're taking this kid to soccer practice at this time, and then taking him to field trip at this time. And then I want to be like the mom that's like the not PTO. The PTA mom. So I'm gonna be there. I want to be making lunch in the cafeteria for my kids. I'm gonna be taking them on their field trips. Yeah, that's not. It doesn't just stop once your kid reaches kindergarten.
So Andrew's not saying that as kids get older, the less involved that you can be in different ways. It merely means the less amount of time that you have to devote to your kids in a continuous manner. You know, it doesn't mean that you're still not devoting time, that you're still not devoting care and attention and so on and so forth. It just means you don't have to do as much. And it's absolutely the case. By the time I was 15, I was basically a full-fledged adult that was able to operate pretty independently as a young man. Now, some of you guys might say that that's not the best parenting. I think it was magnificent, and I really appreciate my father doing that. But now, and granted, that's anecdotal evidence of what Andrew's saying, but still, I think that this is a pretty status quo response from Andrew, and is fairly obvious.
And also, you have multiple kids. I have multiple. My kids are going to be doing a lot of shit.
What does this have to do with my point that they do require less attention as they get older?
You don't neglect children once they get to school age.
You don't stop taking care of your kids once they're in school.
That's not my point. Let me reiterate it one more time. Children require less attention the older they get. Yes or no?
I don't agree. No. Teenagers. If you're being a good parent, then no. Maybe once they're out of my house, once they're out of my house, they're 18. But no, you should.
None of you have children.
No, but we work.
They need more attention when they're younger.
I've worked.
You think
that's the stupidest thing someone can say, is that you can't have an opinion on a kid unless you have your own kid. We were all kids. We all experienced childhood.
Not that long ago. I'm sorry, but you being a teenager was like years and years and decades ago. But we were teenagers.
No, I agree with that. Just because you aren't something doesn't mean that you can't have an opinion, and it doesn't mean that your opinion is false or otherwise. But I would say that, for example, if you're giving a perspective on professional sports and you did happen to place pro sports, I would give your opinion a little bit more cachet than I would somebody right off the bat, right off the jump, than had you not played professional sports. Again, doesn't mean that I cannot be persuaded from somebody who didn't play professional sports. But in this example, yes, I am absolutely more akin to listening to what Andrew has to say when he has raised 5 human beings than any of these broads on this episode, when they have not been parents to not uno kids. So that's just the fact there. But again, does that mean that they're false or they can't have opinion? Of course not. But it does still mean that I am more likely to immediately give Andrew's opinion more cachet than I would theirs.
Teenagers, like what, 2 or 3 years ago? Sorry that you're an old
teenagers.
man.
What are you talking about, lady? Listen.
Doesn't seem like you were raising them.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're doing a good job.
An infant obviously requires far more attention than a 12-year-old.
Sometimes that's not even true. They take naps for so
What if
much
you-
time in the
What
day.
if you can't leave a baby
You're crazy.
I know, but that
Lady, listen.
doesn't seem like you were raising them.
Yeah, it
Obviously
doesn't sound like you're
requires
doing a good
far
job.
more. An infant obviously requires far more attention than a 12-year-old.
Sometimes that's not even true. They take naps for so
What if
much
you-
time in the
What
day.
if you can't leave a baby?
You're crazy.
I know, but
How
that's
could
but
you-
it's
That's
okay.
just ridiculous. Of course, they require more attention than a 12, a 13, a 14, a 15-year-old. Guys, like I said, and it's anecdotal evidence, but I can say this across the board with my friends that I was able to see were basically getting a similar treatment to myself, that once, you know, a kid gets from like 13 to 18-year-old range, most of their time is being spent independently and with friends and other people outside of their nuclear family. Okay. It doesn't mean that they're not spending any time with their nuclear family, but they're branching out. And as somebody who has a master's degree in psychology, that is absolutely the norm in child development. You know, this is like one of the first things that you learn in child psychology, is that there are stages to a child's development. And one of those stages is them, and especially as they get older, is them branching out and kind of exploring the world around them without their parental unit. Okay.
If you want to say overall, yes,
And
but like,
children
what if
have
you
different
have?
needs.
I
That
was
is
a
what he's
perfect.
saying is overall.
I know, but yeah, but you.
Just an example of arguing just to argue. None of these chicks are going to get married, bro. Can you fucking imagine being married to any of these broads and just like literally everything that you say is argued against? But what about this? But what about this? But just this consistent, but what aboutism and this, you know, I mean, it would just be this consistent headache of, and just downright brutality that, you know, but again, it comes down to nobody has ever told any of these women that their opinion is wrong, it's fucking stupid, and they need to just shut up. Nobody has ever done that in their lives.
You could have a perfect baby, right? It could be the blessing. They sleep through the night, everything, and then
They
an
still would
incident
need more
happens.
attention.
Or what if you realize when they're older that they had autism and you weren't dealing with it? You can have a child forever. What if you have a child with special
thing
needs?
is,
You can't just move
have nothing to
every
do with it.
time.
But
You
he's
just-
bringing
well,
up
what
this
if a
point.
meteorite came out of the
He's-
sky and hit somebody? We're not talking about extreme
To say
outliers
that
here.
it's a difference because the man has to go to
Stop
work
it.
forever, and the woman,
Get
oh,
some-
once the kid's
Stop
up,
it.
it's not the same
Get
amount of
some
work and
help.
effort. But that's not true all the time. You never know. You can't just say that. That's how it's
Kiko,
supposed to be.
stop going for the extreme outlier every
That is not
time.
extreme.
Do you think, generally speaking, that an infant requires more attention than a 12-year-old?
What? Okay, so what do you do in the? Hold on.
Attention, but not
Just
really.
answer the fucking question.
Shut your fucking mouth.
How hard could this be?
Answer
Just
the
answer
fucking
it.
question.
Answers
What do
the
you do in the
question.
summer then? What do you do in the summer then? So
God.
I'm
Are
gonna
you
have that
gonna
12-year-old the whole
answer the
summer, right?
question?
I'm gonna have that baby the whole summer, right? I'm gonna have that 10-year-old the whole summer,
Answer
right?
the question.
I already answered it 3 times. I said fucking no.
Then just say
I
yes
said
or
fucking
no.
no. I said fucking no like 3 times.
I said fucking no. She's so fucking ghetto, bro. Man, I feel so bad for whoever the fuck her boyfriend is. And she said, you know, that he is conservative. I and he's masculine. I don't know.
How
I don't
many
think
of
that's true.
you
Now, who
have
knows?
gotten a
Maybe
guitar?
he's really able to, he's the one guy that holds her in line and shit like that. But my guess is he really enjoys the pussy. He knows that she is a pain in the ass to deal with and is only doing so until he gets kind of bored of that snatch. So
Could you possibly believe
Christ.
that an infant requires less attention than a 12-year-old, 13-year-old,
I didn't say less. I said
14-year-old?
the same.
You're sending the 13, 14-year-old off the 12-year-old off to a public school for 8 to 10 hours a day.
Okay,
8
and
to
then
10
you have
hours
to-
a day. The
I didn't
infants
know
are with
public
you
school was
24 hours a day.
365
They
days a
can't
year.
even respond with their needs. You have to
And then
anticipate
you
what
ask
their
a
needs are.
question
They
and then
can't
you don't
verbally
even listen to the
communicate with you.
answer.
Okay.
They can't even tell you what they need.
Say you do send the kid off to school or whatever. Okay, how long is school? Till 12, or for most kids. And then if they're 4, 5, 6 years old.
Till 12?
Yeah, like 12. If they're like 4 years old, that's like the earliest you can send them to a public school. It like gets out at 12. Okay, you pick them up.
Pizza.
You have, okay, and then what? The other kids
Yes.
get out
They
at
go to the
1:30.
babysitter usually. Both parents are working, right?
No, not if you're
Not a lot of
Many
people
kids do
can,
that.
yeah.
One point is this
That was the
point.
whole
That's
point.
not-
The
that's
whole
already-
point,
Yeah,
the whole
dude.
point here, what we're talking about is that the woman
There's a point?
is staying home and is
Hold on. There's a point here? What? Because I much like Andrew, I am mightily struggling to understand what the fuck it is.
caretaker
Okay,
of the
so
children
the woman
and the
stays
household.
home, and then
she
at
has,
noon,
let me
the
finish,
4-year-old comes
Andrew.
back home.
Let me finish because you're actually pissing me off because you don't know how to just shut up and listen to the girls. Like you
Maybe
think
you
you're
didn't
this
think
man,
that I've been
you think
talking
you're this
less than
big,
you.
You think you're this
You've been
big,
interrupting
huge man
more.
that can just interrupt us, and it's getting fucking annoying. Like just shut
Nobody
up.
gives a shit what you think, you stupid
Whoa,
scat.
no insult. No insult. No, no, no. Oh my God.
Fuck yeah, let's go. Let's
Saying that,
go.
how fucking old are you talking to a 21-year-old like that?
By the way, guys, listen, I'm not saying I don't like Brian. I think he is a good guy, but he definitely is not the most masculine, and he's let's keep it real. He's kind of nerdy, he's kind of dorky. And you know, this is kind of exemplifying that. But with that being said, you know, one of these days I definitely loved, and he has put together, it is not easy to put together a studio like this and a consistent podcast like this, and my hat goes off to him.
Andrew
Banks.
Banks.
Childish
Andrew Banks,
as fuck.
Put your swords away.
I mean,
Listen,
here you are
this is-
spurting
You're
at top of the
intimidated.
because
I'm a
basis.
pull
Yeah, he's intimidated because every guy who disagrees with you and actually shuts you up is intimidated. That's exactly what it is, because really it's odd. It seems the exact opposite, that's not what it is. It seems the exact opposite, that's the reason why he is able to do so is because he's not intimidated by you. That it's funny how that it seems so opposite, so much different from what you're saying. Honestly, intimidated, come on now.
Same shit I did with MLD.
Okay,
You're
guys,
intimidated.
guys.
Just listen to the girls.
Whoa,
the girls
holy
don't
Yeah, because that's exactly what it is. Anytime, and that, you know, another female tactic, anytime they are, you know, actually pressured and pinned down as, you know, theologically and with what is actually, they are being, actually a more accurate phrase would be being held accountable for what they're actually saying. And the guy is not intimidated. What they do, they immediately go after the guy's masculinity and say, "Oh, you know, you're weak, you're intimidated." Class.
even make any sense. This one girl over here
Holy
just got
shit.
done telling me that an infant,
Thank you,
when
Amy.
it comes
Check.
to an infant, they
Thank you, Amy.
require
Check.
less attention.
I never said fucking less. I said the
Hey,
same.
guys.
I never said less.
Same.
God damn.
And said it 3 times. Made sure to say no 3 times.
Okay, moving
really
on.
listens.
Moving on. That was
I really thought he
eventful.
was
That was
gonna
an
be better,
eventful
too.
conversation.
I'm really disappointed,
Uh,
actually.
Going back to Ov Gray
Such
over
a
here.
baby.
Yep, another one. Such a baby. I'm really disappointed. You know, same shit that they would say about a guy that has broken up with them, that you know has had sex. You know, I was really disappointed. He has such a small dick. You know, all that bullshit.
My final thoughts
Gray.
on the whole Ov Gray.
Of great. Like
Of gray.
Of
like
OF.
relationship dynamic. It's like modernity when it benefits you, and tradition when it benefits you. So typically the way that looks is modernity for women, tradition for men.
No.
Men have to adhere to their traditional gender roles while you guys can continue being modern women, dressing provocatively, doing sex work,
How is it
doing sex work.
Okay, first of all, she's saying that she
It's
wants,
literally,
she just understands that not everybody wants what she has.
Why-
Some people want
let
that.
her talk.
Because you're not listening to her.
So I'm going to interject here. Yes, it is inconsistent. And what these girls fail to verbalize or be honest about is, and Myron always points this out, Myron Gaines does, that because the common argument, and Kiko's trying to make it right now, is, you know, a woman can simultaneously be masculine one moment and can easily flip it and change it up into being feminine and submissive and nurturing and caring, like they're changing clothes. And Myron gives the example of a guy who, you know, puts on female clothes on the weekend. Is it logical or probable that he would be able, the same guy who has certain motivations that liken him to putting on female clothing, so on and so forth, the same motivations, that it would be easy for him in that following week to just all of a sudden be a masculine, macho, strong man? No, of course fucking not. Why? Because who they are on the inside does not change. Okay. And you know, who you are, the physical representations are just what we see from who somebody is really on the inside. And it's not that easy to just change from one foundational characteristic and behavior. You guys know how difficult it is to change habits or hell, even change certain mannerisms that you have or enunciations, little things like that. You think it's that easy to just go from being masculine to feminine to masculine? That's bullshit. So if the same motivations that go into you having this adoration for female empowerment, female power, feminism, would also go into how you would respond in a relationship with a man. And no, it is not likely that you would be submissive and be nurturing and feminine and so on and so forth. It's not likely. In fact, it's highly unlikely, because who you are underneath it all is that, you know, bitchy, rude, combative, antagonistic woman.
She's saying, she said it like multiple times, and you guys aren't understanding it.
No, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around it, because it's like,
Are
again,
you jealous?
you want
So
to
she
be
wants other women to have that.
Stop, Kika, let me finish. You want to be a modern woman when it benefits you, and you want tradition when it benefits you.
But who are you referring to?
All y'all, sort of,
No, I
kind of.
said I would still be traditional.
Wait, but you said you're like super progressive.
Come on,
and-
Brian, just stick to what you say,
Because
man.
they
Come on.
understand that. They want that, but those three right there, or
I
those
can
two
fix
literally
you.
want
Even said
that.
I'd
So
bow.
they
I can
agree.
fix you.
No, you can't. I'm extremely stubborn.
Wait, what?
I'm extremely stubborn. You cannot.
I can correct
No,
your path.
I think that everything's like,
I'll fix you.
people just do their own thing. If you want to be a certain religion, be a certain religion, whatever. I never said that I wouldn't be traditional. I literally said my job is like raising
I'll get a
children.
bow.
I
One
wanna
of
be
these- one day I'll get a bow. I'll get a
I
bow.
can
Okay,
be with like
here.
my children over the summer.
I was basically raising children until I came onto this podcast. Who
I
made
really
me sound
No,
know-
you were
my
not
goal.
raising children.
yes, you don't know what the
Taking
fuck
Wait,
I
no,
was
no,
doing.
no,
You were sitting kids.
Wait,
You were not
wait.
raising children.
You don't know,
You
how
don't know
much
what
in
the
their
fuck
lives
I
you
was
were.
doing.
Yeah,
You don't know what the
dude.
fuck I was doing. So who the fuck are you to say
Okay,
that I know?
raising children. I can't wait to hear
He
it.
was so mean.
I
to
would,
her.
yeah. Bitch,
I
shut up.
see Latina.
That's a terrible. Yeah, I mean,
I
so
see
many
You don't know what the fuck I was
Latina.
doing.
It's more than
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know that you were
Wait, guys,
fucking fly on the wall spying my every fucking
One at a
move.
time. Hey, all right, we get it.
Some
we get
nannies
it.
and
Spicy.
babysitters.
I
are
was
with them
literally
more than
getting
their
called
parents.
mom.
I need
I was
mallet.
getting called
Give me
mom.
the fucking mallet. Give me the judge mallet. Hold on.
Okay, but you,
Oh my gosh, is that really what she said? I was being called mom. I was being called mom. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. That is the biggest fucking cope. You know how much, like I always say, guys, you just have to see, listen to what they say, watch what they do. And she just exposed herself. She just exposed what her real innate desire is, which is to be a mother. And because if she didn't give a shit about that, she wouldn't give a shit about what Andrew just said. Honestly, she wouldn't give a shit that Andrew just pointed out or clarified that she was babysitting other people's kids, not raising her own. And no. And also that's anecdotal. I doubt they actually called you mom. And if they did, they were completely joking. They don't actually think of you as their mom. And, I mean, come on. That is the biggest fucking cope if I've ever seen one, is her saying that.
Sure.
Brian's having a great time.
I've got my fucking judge mallet here, so if I slam on this, y'all shut the fuck up, okay? I will tell you guys what this costume is. Barred. I probably can't go to Chile because who knows?
God.
Now you might be wondering, Brian, it looks
$200.
Oh, he's back. Things and the ability to work, although it's not clear to me like to the degree to which women were barred from the workforce and just certain biological realities throughout history and the fact, there's a whole bunch of things there. But even like one of the big pushes that feminism does, it's like, let's do away with gender roles. Gender roles are a bad thing.
And that's
men and
what
women
this
are the
comes down
same.
to.
That's a big push from feminism. So that's what
And I'm glad Brian pointed that out, because what this all comes down to is women want the benefits of being a feminist when it benefits them, and they want the benefits of being a traditional woman when it benefits them. And that is really fascinating insight into female nature as a whole. But in general, that is just the truth. And it's terribly inconsistent. It's not fair. It's not right. And it's not as easy as they claim it to be able to just go from being a feminist who believes in female empowerment and all the motivations and, true inner desire that come with it. It's not as easy to flip to being a traditional subservient, submissive wife who, is perfectly content with her husband being the leader. Okay. That it's just complete and utter nonsense. And so, quite frankly, I, as somebody who goes out on dates and, this past year, I've probably been out on 20 or so dates. I really am in the middle of, and I think I really just play it by ear, based off of what the vibes are that I'm getting from the chick. If I'm getting vibes of a chick who, because it's impossible to know outside of like her having purple, purple, pink, red hair. But I don't ask those types of girls out anyways, but it's impossible to know beforehand. And so I kind of just play it by ear. I feel out, I test boundaries. I'm putting out testers, and based off of what I'm receiving back will determine whether I pay for the dinner or not. If it is somebody that does appear to be more traditional and have exemplified the qualities that go with that, I'm much more open to it. If it's not, then I will only pay for my half and not offer to pay for the whole thing. Now, you could say, well, LAC, some women are really good at faking it. And that's true. That's true. And is it possible that a few of these snuck past the goalposts and I was bamboozled. Bamboozled and lied to and tomfooleried, of course. But you tell me a better strategy. I mean, perhaps a better strategy is that no matter what, regardless, you either pay, or no matter what, regardless, you only pay for yourself and make the chick earn it down the line. I think that both of those are good options, and I've tried both, because I do really believe that you set the tone for whatever the relationship is going to be, for whatever time frame it's going to be, with the initial first date. So, but it's really difficult, and I don't envy you fellas out there that have to go through the same thing, because listen, fellas, it's tough. Believe me, it's tough, and I fully get it. Okay. But regardless, this whole playing both sides of the fence, both sides of the coin, wanting to dismantle gender roles while simultaneously expecting men to adhere to their gender roles is not right. And it's not fair. It's not coherent. It's not logical. It's not consistent.
I get confused because it's like, okay, we shouldn't view women in these sorts of ways, and you can say it's all about just from the government down when it comes to rights and stuff, but a big feminist push was we need to view women not even from a legal perspective, but from like a societal perspective as in XYZ ways. But we haven't changed that for men. Like, for example, if you want true equality, there would be, for example, a push for women to, in a dating context, for women to be initiators, for women to make the first move, for women to be willing and prepared to pay for the first date.
There's like a biological reason that's not the case, though.
Well,
you're putting yourselves in harm's way a lot of the time.
Oh, so there is a biological motivation to gender dynamics and gender roles. You don't say. I don't disagree. Fuck, she stepped into that one. Wow.
Wait, what?
Well, now that I know what you're asking.
How common like date rape is?
What the
now that
fuck?
Sorry, I didn't mean to say that word, but
Okay, she took it into a totally totally wild direction, but you don't say that there is an essence to both men and women that totally motivate how we go about things. You don't say.
Okay, go ahead with your point. Go ahead with your point.
Now that I know what you're
Now, obviously, I'm not referring to what she was referring to, but I digress.
asking, I think it is absolutely possible for people to be in the same universe as those that want traditional roles and those that might want untraditional roles, and it has nothing to do with quote-unquote biological differences, as you were saying, which I understand that there are biological differences between men and women. Absolutely there are, but I'm just saying that wouldn't impact my decision making, because in my opinion, and I say this with emphasis, in my opinion.
Okay, hold on. No. Say
nice,
your opinion,
Brian.
Go ahead.
That was also something that was granted to women later on in history.
Here, let me
was
ask you guys a
proper
question.
education.
Hold on, I'm going to ask you a question.
So in a nutshell, she basically says that she thinks that a feminist can also simultaneously want their male partner to be a traditional man.
Those of you who said that men should be providers and you'd want a guy to pay for you on the first date, will you take your husband's last name?
So, we'll see what their answer is. Even this, the answer should be...
I will hyphenate.
Yes.
Keiko says she'll hyphenate. I don't get the fucking hyphenate thing. When you hyphenate a last name, you are changing the name. It's not the same last name. That's why you're hyphenating it. I don't... Either you take it or you don't. This whole hyphenate bullshit is when you hyphenate, you're creating a whole new last name, especially if you give it to your kids, your offspring. It's a totally different last name. I don't understand that.
Yes, what?
Yes, I will take my.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want my family to have all the one last name.
So no hyphenation?
No.
Okay.
Oh, if I get married, absolutely.
Hold on. Absolutely.
My husband's last name.
All right. Okay. Well,
So most of them said
Just
yes.
you?
Just
I'm
suffice
about
it
the
to
same
say.
Okay.
unit.
Yeah, I would have been
here,
down,
the
but
traditional thing.
Yeah, well, it's always curious to me. That's why I was kind of drilling in earlier on the idea of rights. So when you're talking about feminism, you should make a notation that most men couldn't vote. Almost no men could. Suffrage was something which came later. It was not a foundational principle. And I'm trying to figure out why it is that you think women's liberation is so great. Why do you think feminism is awesome?
Because
way,
they got
this
us
is-
here to where it is, to where we are now.
This is from Back to the Roots YouTube channel. So I want to give this credit. Obviously, this is the Whatever podcast, but this is Back to the Roots, giving them credit for the video. She said, because it's gotten us to where we're at now. Yeah. And most people would argue that our society is a shit show now. So shite show.
Now?
Men did.
And
Yeah, but good.
And yes, men did get us to this. And yes, this is in part men's faults. Weak men's fault.
So then why
But it
do
was still
women?
feminism.
Why do so many women
The men
complain
made the decision, but-
today about not having equal rights to men?
I'm not complaining.
We're
I'm
not
s-
complaining.
yeah.
I know that
no,
you're
I'm
not
just wanna keep it
complaining,
that
but
way.
Yeah.
We're not saying that we're complaining. We're saying that we
That-
are in support
have that
of
conversation with
that,
a different type of feminist.
Yeah, that,
but
you guys are
not-
looking for the
not
blue hair
us.
Yeah.
feminists. That's not what
Yeah,
they are. So
that's
it's
not
not.
what we are.
Right.
no, I think it's the same type of egalitarian principle. So I think
That's
the
right.
first
It is part of the same egalitarian principle. By the way, when I interviewed Andrew, I asked him about egalitarianism, and I asked him if he was, because, you know, he's obviously dismissive of egalitarianism, which I am as well. I asked him if that meant that he was complementarian. I went to a Christian university, and in my gender dynamics class, we discussed this, and those are the two options. And his answer was no. I don't think he knew what complementarianism was or is. And his response was, and I could be wrong, but his response was that, you know, he believes in a patriarchal system. I think it is possible to live in a patriarchal complementarian society. Complementarianism means that the genders complement each other, that there are distinct gender differences, and it is basically being honest about that and being open about that and admitting that. So, you know, if he does come across this video, I would recommend looking into complementarian, and that is how I understand it. So anyways, but I do agree with Andrew that we're on the same page as far as the patriarchal system. We definitely are on the same page there. So anyway, but I agree with Andrew that regardless, that, you know, these females on this show are distinguishing that they are not, you know, blue-haired feminazis that hate men. So they say, and Andrew's saying, no. It still is the foundation of it, the motivation of it is this push or desire for egalitarianism. And I completely agree with him there. So
the second wave led to the third and fourth wave, and that the principles are in essence the same. So I
not
don't
looking
think
up
that there's
feminist
this massive
principles on
distinction
Wikipedia.
between fourth and third wave feminism to first and second. I don't think that it's just about voting. I think it's about a move towards this.
yeah, we know you're not. That's not a surprise to us. We know you're not looking it up, and you're basically just spewing whatever bullshit that you've heard. That's it. We know you haven't looked into this deeply. I mean, come on now.
These kinds of egalitarian principles, which I largely reject.
I think most of the feminists that I know are more of like, I don't see myself as equal to a man. I know obviously he's stronger than me, and there's a lot of differences between us biologically. It's more of so that women wanted the option, if they wanted to have their own education or be by themselves or go 50-50, that's the whole point, is it just to have that option. Because before you had no choice but to get married and have kids with a man, and then if it went south, there was no escape for women. That's what most women
That's
are
not
There
thinking
still
about
is an
feminism.
escape for
And
women. Like this is the bad
No,
part
now
of
she could be
feminist
by herself
propaganda.
and get divorced and
No,
start
none of
her own
that's
Get a
true.
college
This is the bad
education.
part of feminist
And I've said
propaganda.
this
is
so
that
many
what you're-
times when I've been on this podcast, when they ask me like, oh, like what does a feminist mean to you? It means doing whatever the fuck you want to do without
Right,
society.
that sounds right.
Without society. Without society
Yeah,
being
not
like,
really
okay,
a
well,
shocker.
you're not a traditional woman. You're a crazy cat lady. No, fuck that. Like, I don't want anybody to have.
But yeah, no, not a surprise that that's what you see it as, that you can just do whatever the fuck you want. You have no dedication to your country, to your family, to have babies and things like that. As a daughter, you have no accountability, that you can just whatever the fuck you want to do. There is nothing that you owe to anybody, anything, nothing, not to civilization, not to, just whatever you want to do, because you are you, outweighs everything else, and you can just do whatever the fuck you want to do. Imagine if everybody had that mindset in society. Can you imagine? Honestly, the West would be a shit show. The West and the East would be an absolute shit show. So, that's pretty much that. But we're gonna watch a tiny bit more of this, and then we'll move on, see if there's anything else to dive into.
Have that fucking shit.
Right, you want to just be able to do whatever the fuck you want.
Yes,
right?
Period. Thank you, Andrew. You finally listened.
Ginger ale.
There are consequences to your actions, though. There are consequences to your actions.
That suffers those consequences is the person that does the action.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. My consequences.
What is my consequence for defining myself as a feminist?
Well, it's not just the feminist label. It's having. How do I say this? If you are about the sexual liberation thing and having multiple all these partners, there are consequences to that.
It leads towards. She actually is making a good point here. This leads towards societal decay.
It's not my business what other people do with their body. Society. If they want, not me personally, I wouldn't be sleeping around. But if another person wants to be sleeping around and call it liberation, then to hell with that. They can do whatever the fuck they want to do. I'm nobody to be like, oh, well, you're a whore for fucking wanting to sleep with 10,000 people.
But what's wrong if somebody does call them that? Why is that problematic in your worldview?
Because it's mean. Yes, thank you, Andrew.
So for me, I don't care if they get called a whore.
Always concerned with how things are said rather than what is said, the content of what is said. Classic. Family.
But it's just the fact that they have the right to
solve
do it.
any issues.
Like you're a whore. Yes, you're a whore. That's a whore. It is true,
that,
but they have the right to do it.
Social shaming and social stigma solves issues.
It's not going to solve anything.
It
solves nothing.
No, it definitely does help, for sure. Because just as the left and more modern-minded individuals have beaten conservative, traditionally minded individuals into submission, into not advocating for their worldview. And she is the consequence of that, where above all else, she will say and advocate for what is culturally acceptable according to today's day and time, rather than what is right, regardless of a point in history and the specific society that we live in.
Andrew, what do you gain?
What do you gain? What are you talking about?
Let me ask you, what do you gain from coming on here and calling me a skank? Do you gain anything? Do you get a little pat on the back? Do you get a cookie?
Of the way. So what happens is, what you have to do, unfortunately, in the modern society that you're dealing with, where there's tons of decay, is when somebody hits you, you have to hit them back harder. That's the way it generally seems to work, unfortunately. Now, if you had behaved yourself, been a good girl, I wouldn't have had
Don't call me that. Do not call me
Like a good
Instead,
girl.
you had to mouth off and be a bitch, so I just kind of talked to you like I talked to you. Now, if you had behaved yourself, been a good girl, I wouldn't have had.
Don't call me that. Do not call me
But
that.
instead, you had to mouth off and be a bitch, so I just kind of talked to you like I talked to you. Right? That's how it works.
Do you think, let me ask you.
Let's not insult. Guys, let's not
Andrew,
insult
do
people.
you think
Not insult people. He got up here and called.
No, that's what I'm saying.
He called moms against drunk driving dumb broads.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
He
They
called
were,
moms
well, I
against
mean,
drunk
but they
driving
were
dumb
being dumb
broads.
broads when they did that.
Sir,
right?
I'm going to tell you something, okay?
Grieving mothers.
You're
Grieving.
coming from a place of great insecurity.
No, it sucks that you have some good behavior.
I've never met an adult. I work for men that are probably the same age, probably even younger than you, and I've never had them call me a dumb skank.
I know, but
They
the
treat me
problem
with
is
respect.
that's my whole problem.
They treat me with respect, and I've never
It's
come.
societal.
No, it's artificial respect. They all want to fuck you. That's why they don't say anything that is remotely how they actually think or feel towards you.
Let me finish. I've never
societal
once.
stigma existed, then women would have much better behavioral patterns in society.
So
That's
just
what I
because
advocate
I didn't
for.
behave the way you wanted me to behave, I am therefore a skank. That to you,
No,
that makes
that's not
sense
what
in your
makes
head?
So anyways, I just wanted to play that clip for you. That's pretty much it, to point out just the complete idiocy of believing simultaneously and advocating for gender roles to be abolished when it benefits them, and at the same time, when it benefits them, of course, to have traditional roles, gender roles upheld, and men need to adhere to their masculine tendencies when it's the tendencies of those things that are positive towards them, that benefit them. You know, it's funny to hear modern women say, you know, I like a masculine man, a provider and a protector, but it's like, okay, but you know, people who are honest realize that when you get those things, you also sometimes get, uh, certain qualities that come with it. You know, men tend to be more violent. They have more violent crimes and things like that. You know, there's a yin and a yang to everything. And it's only these delusionally minded individuals who think that they can pick and choose like a la carte. I forget who said that. I heard somebody on YouTube say this kind of a la carte. You know, I want a little bit of traditionalism here. I want a little bit of modernity here, and a little bit of feminism here, and a little bit of abolish the patriarchy here. And, you know, all this bullshit. It's not a la carte. It doesn't work like that. And only in these delusionally minded times where truth is this ambiguous concept. I mean, we really are living in a time where truth is being debated, and there is no consistent truth that is upheld in the West currently. The only consistent worldview that I can see from a certain group within the West and Eastern Europe would be Christianity. But even then, sometimes we have issues. We live in a very moral, ambiguous time. And it's no wonder some people are so lost and so confused and inconsistent. You know, just because I'm an Orthodox Christian doesn't mean that I, believe that you absolutely need to adhere to everything I say just because I say it. No, I want you to be curious, and I want you to search out the truth yourself, because only then will you come to a more consistent and strong point of view. So this is Revolver News. Let's see. I was trying to see, Jesus makes a profound and resounding return in New York City's Times Square. Wow. We need your help. Known as America's most desolate, liberal-run city plagued by rampant crime, drugs, moral decay, homelessness, and skyrocketing costs, there's arguably no place on earth more in need of the spirit of Jesus this Christmas season than the Big Apple. Surprisingly, Times Square, of all places, delivered a monumental tribute. For the first time ever, all 27 billboards were dedicated to sharing the story of Christmas, visible and audible for everyone to witness. This happened 3 weeks ago, but it's still stunning to see and truly a Christmas miracle. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints took over the iconic New York City. Man, Mormons know how to get it done. You know, obviously, I think that their worldview is inconsistent as well, but dang, good for them to show scenes of Jesus Christ's birth and the traditional nativity. A video of the event posted by the church on Friday shows many people who stopped along the busy streets to watch as lights on the giant screens showed beautiful artwork of shepherds, wise men, animals, angels, Mary, Joseph, and of course, baby Jesus. Baby Jesus. Jesus. The message shared at Times Square encourages people to share Christ's light by letting their light shine before displaying the logo of the church and its annual Light the World campaign. Let's check this out. I don't want to see all that, but let's see this. Wow, so creative. That's awesome, guys. Listen, obviously I'm not Mormon, but I got to admit, this is very creative. Pretty smart. Pretty smart. Pretty smart. So that's awesome, man. Well, that's awesome. The greatest story ever told is unfolding, and regardless of one's views on the Mormon Church, its message is something that everyone in America needs to see and experience, especially now. Merry Christmas. I concur. I concur. Let's see what else we have. Fierce in the North. Let's see this. Commitment of a Catholic king. See what this is all about. Oh, this is a long ass. On the genius of Christianity, Francois René de Chateaubriand wrote that when God placed man in this reign of tempest, he impressed on him a mark of royalty, sometimes literally. On Christmas Day, 1792, Louis XVI, King of France, the last, before more than 4 months in prison with my family in the Tower of the Temple at Paris, preemptively wrote his last will and testament. It was under a month before it was required when the guillotine blade dropped in the place de la Revolution, formerly the place Louis XVI Square, then a little over a decade old, whose bronze centerpiece of Louis XVI cast as a Roman general had been schmelted, and swapped for a lance-wielding red-capped Liberty. This death march to January 21, 1793 charts the extinction of the Capetian miracle and the butchered end of the last meaningful, sustained monarchy in France. Mother of Liberty was in labor. That's too much to read. Let's see. A glimmer of hope. Turkey votes for Christmas. Cool. For us, unto a child is born. But here's the best news reporting that ever was. Do not be afraid, for behold, I proclaim to you good news of great joy that will be for all people. For today in the city of David, a Savior has been born for you, who is Christ and Lord. And this will be a sign for you, and you will find an infant wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger. And suddenly there was a multitude of the heavenly host with the angel, praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests. A Savior has been born. The incarnation of Jesus Christ changes everything about history, about humanity, and about the meaning of our own lives. It is the single most important thing ever to have happened. At the Pillar, we'll be taking a couple of days with our families to contemplate that mystery. That's what Christmas is all about. Charlie Brown. Barring a serious emergency, we won't be back at work until January 2nd. Oh, okay. That's the editor-in-chief. See what turkey's all about. Fucking turkey. So this is from Catholic Herald. Turkey votes for Christmas. There was a glimmer of hope in the miasma of the Middle East after the Hamas atrocities of October 7th. A day later, a new church opened in Istanbul. This may not seem remarkable for a city that is home to what was the world's largest cathedral for 1,000 years. In the case of St. Ephraim's Church, it was the first Christian place of worship to be opened in Turkey for 184 years. Some suggest it's 179 years, and others consider only the years since the founding of the Republic of Turkey. Not that the Western media is counting. The event was hardly mentioned in Europe or America. Opening, wow, that's crazy. Well, that's cool. I mean, I wish it was Orthodox, but that's cool. All right, guys, the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to check out Rumble. See, by the way, guys, if you're not following me on Rumble, definitely give me a follow. You know, the good news about Rumble is you don't need the 1,000 subscribers to, you know, to get the ad revenue. So, but let's see what everybody's going on. Yeah, I was kind of, that's the one thing I forgot to do is, that's the one thing I forgot to do is to find non-copyrightable Christmas music. But here you go. Well, the last thing we'll do. I don't know if you guys can still hear it, but I can. What's the DS? The deep state into a state of desperation. Well, anyways, guys, that's going to do it for me. I really do hope that you guys have had an excellent Christmas so far. You know, we cannot be silent any longer. We cannot be ashamed of being Christians, of loving this country and its traditions. You know, I get tired of seeing these people who are obviously Christians and people who believe in Christmas saying this bullshit like happy holidays and stuff like that. No, you say Merry Christmas. And, you know, I hope that you get everything that you hoped you would get. But more importantly, I hope that you can use this time to spend with people that you love and care about. And you guys can share in that love together, because that ultimately is the most important thing during this time, quite frankly. You know, material things only provide so much happiness. The source of everlasting love and happiness is your family and people that you care about. So, you know, I hope that you get to do that. Use this time to reflect on your life and your relationship with God. And you know, if you're not in a place now where you would like to be with God, you know, use this time to turn it around. You know, and I would just advocate two things. Go to church next weekend. and two, read the Bible, you know, at the very least one more time than you usually do. You know, and if you usually read the Bible 0 times, just do it 1 time. Just get your nose, your eyes, just hold it. You know, spend time with it. Spend time with God's word, and then of course go to church and just see where it takes you. You know, so anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a magnificent rest of your day. I will be live again. Well, not live, but I'll be posting again here in the coming days. Gonna spend some time with family, eat some scrumptious food. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy, Willow, and facts are feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you, kings. See you guys next time. Christ is king. Peace.